All right, we're on.
So
Welcome.
I'm being usurped, am I?
Oh, you were waiting to say that, weren't you?
I have been. I've been
You
waiting
were.
3 weeks.
Usurper,
Usurped.
usurper.
Yes, I did listen to that last interview. It was excellent. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there. I do hope that you decide to keep me around, though.
Well, I don't know. It's a tough act to
Uh,
follow.
Man,
But no, I really
Pity.
enjoyed. I really
I have
enjoyed
this.
having Madeline on, and we got some really good feedback from the interview from people I talked to about it. So yeah, it
and
was a
I
lot of
didn't
fun.
embarrass us.
Yeah, despite your best efforts.
I tried. I really tried, but
You just
mm,
had to be too professional.
yeah.
No, well done. Hopefully, I'll be able to be there for the next time we have a guest on. So yes, but everyone, hello and welcome to We're Not Helpful, a podcast about books, our thoughts, opinions, and recommendations. Today, I am Eloise, not Madeline. I have not been usurped. Joining me, as always, is that's where you come in.
Oh, we have to introduce ourselves now.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Julian.
I just took a drink of water, so I had to mute myself.
Sorry.
That
We'll
is,
get better at that.
I'm Brayton.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
Hello,
and
guys.
yes, we apologize for the lateness of this episode, but my old computer decided to crap out on me. So I had to get a refund on it and get a new computer. And here we are.
It's been a saga. Maybe
It's
one day we'll release it in our autobiography.
it's been a saga. It will be
It's
a
quite the
chapter.
tale.
It's the chapter.
Yes, basically it's insert particular place that sells goods and services here are not great at their customer
Yep.
service.
Yep. And
Shocking.
I learnt a
Shocking
lot about
development.
Australian consumer law on the road to get here, which I will say our consumer laws are pretty darn good, I have to say.
Yes, they are.
I
Yes, they
will
are.
I will complain a lot about this country, but that's one thing I think we're doing right.
Yes, you just have to complain loud enough and to high enough people, and you end up getting a refund, which is excellent.
Yep. And that's what happened. And here we are. We're back to it. Episode, what are we? Episode six, seven? I've lost track. Seven. We're episode seven.
Yay.
Nearly in double
Yay.
digits. Go us.
Nearly in double digits. Oh, we'll have to do something for the 10th episode, something special. We're not going to, though. Let's not set
No,
our
we'll,
expectations too high,
we'll think about it and then we won't do anything at all.
which is pretty much how I live my life.
Well, what have you gentlemen been reading this week?
Okay, I'll start because I am really looking forward to hearing the Moby Dick updates because if you've seen our
Oh,
social media, there's some stuff going on.
I have I have opinions.
I'm looking forward to it. Well, I'll start then. I won't take too long. The book I do want to talk about is the one I've been reading lately, which is House of Leaves.
Yes,
Which, if you
I
know anything about that book, I'm not going to be able to explain it because it's a hard book to explain what the heck it's about.
so I heard about this book many years ago when one of my besties, Thisbe, if you're listening, hello, shout out to Thisbe, read it. I think, gosh, we were in
Does she
high
listen?
school.
Does Thisbe listen?
I told her about it, so yeah, it'd be nice if she does. I think she has listened. Um, yeah, I think we were in high school or maybe early university, and she had read it and thought it was the scariest book that she had ever read. It like apparently is supposed to send you a bit mad. I would love to hear like how far into it have you gotten?
I am just over 100 pages in. So it's a slow read. Like the book is like 500, 600 pages long, but a lot of it is kind of appendices and extra stuff too. But things are just starting to get weird. Like essentially, okay, to summarize the start of the book. So I'm not far into it, so I don't know what's going to happen later on in the book. Like I have gone years of wanting to read this book and somehow avoided spoilers. So I'm pretty pleased with that. But essentially, there's this family and they move into this house and things are okay for a while, but then they discover that their house is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. So it's essentially a
And not in the
TARDIS.
Doctor Who way.
Yeah, yeah. It's a
Not in the fun,
TARDIS.
let's go traveling the universe and have a bunch of hijinks kind of
Yeah.
adventure.
And unfortunately, it's not as fun as that.
Oh,
So there's like, and then there's this hallway into blackness that appears in their living room. And through explorations, they go in there, and it's just this endless maze of corridors and infinite stairways and this weird growling sound that appears every now and then. And the rooms shift and turn and change, and it's just really weird.
I have dreams like that.
Yeah,
It
this book
sounds
feels like a fever dream at times.
it sounds like Doctor Who set inside the Amityville Horror.
Yeah,
Mm,
kind of.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
what makes this book unique, like just trying to describe it is really difficult because it just sounds like any run-of-the-mill kind of horror, thriller, supernatural book. But what makes this one interesting is how it's set out in the pages. Like there are footnotes essentially in the world of the story. There is this person that has compiled all these notes and written essentially a academic textbook about a movie called the Naviston Record. And then this person passes away, and this other person finds it and compiles all this stuff in an attempt to get it published. But the movie doesn't actually exist. Like this person looks for this movie and can't find it. So the book is kind of filled with footnotes and scribblings of this person that found it as they're reflecting on what is happening in there, plus stuff that is happening in their own life and how compiling these notes is affecting their own life and their own sanity. And then the book itself is set out in very ways, like words are backwards all over the page. There's footnotes that are literally in a square in the middle of the page. There are pages where there's just one word or words scattered around. It's really difficult to describe, and it sounds really random, but when you're actually reading the book, it actually makes a lot of sense and actually really adds to that unease about what you're reading. And I'm actually really excited to keep going with it because I'm hooked and going a little bit mad.
It's kind of like the author, their mind is unraveling as they're writing the story. Is that kind of how it's supposed to be set out, or you get the feeling that that's what's happening?
I'm not sure because I'm only early stages into this.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard. I'm trying to describe how to separate the story in the story from the author, like the actual real life person that wrote the book.
So the author in the story isn't a personification of the actual author of the book. It's not like him inserting himself into the
No,
novel.
I don't believe so.
I've always wanted to read it myself. It sounds so weird and bizarre. It's like what would happen if you read the Necronomicon by the sounds of it.
Yeah,
What we might do, Brayton, if you can take a photo of a couple of the pages and send them through to me, I can post them up on the Facebook page so that
sounds good.
people having a hard time trying to figure out what it is you're describing
Yeah,
can
this
see.
book, I'm so sorry, but this book is really hard to describe in an audio medium.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
one of those
so
ones you have to go and read. And I'm assuming it's the type of book that would not translate to an audiobook.
absolutely not. I don't know if there is. I'm gonna quickly look now if there is an audiobook adaptation. Even ebook, I don't think would work in this
No,
situation because
because
there's a
I've seen pages and I don't think that would even translate properly into an e-reader either.
yeah, because there's parts of the book. There's one part where there's the person talking about his life, and then there's a point where an unseen editor puts another footnote saying, if you want to know more about this person's backstory, go to like Appendix 2 and read from there. But if you don't want to, that's fine. You just keep reading the story. So the reader has the option. Do they want to know more about this, or do they want to keep going, come back to it later? The word for it is actually, and I looked up, it's I think it's ergotic literature, where the reader has to actually do.
Oh my God, I got it, literature.
Yep, I think it's So the reader actually has to do some work to decipher the book, and there are multiple different ways of experiencing the story. None of them are wrong.
It's almost like a choose your own adventure story.
I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't say it's. I guess there are times when it is similar. Like you have the choice of, do you want to read about this person's backstory or do you want to just keep going? There are those choices throughout.
Is it one of those things where if you decide to go to choose to read up about something, that it tells you to go back to the page number that you were on, or does it give you another option to do something again, or do you just have to remember where you need to go back to?
No, so all I chose to read the appendices. I just got another bookmark and put that where I left off and went to the appendices and read through that part. And it's not like you're missing out on anything if you choose not to read the appendices. It more just provides some context to what's going on, that you can choose not to, you can choose to take it or leave it, and it won't ruin anything. It just changes how you experience the story.
It's interesting because it sounds like it would be almost every time someone reads the book, they might have a different experience to it than you. So you're getting you probably have that for every book that you read, but perhaps more on a pronounced level with this particular type of story.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's a book for everyone, because you do have to put in some work. Like the first maybe 50 or so pages are pretty standard novel story. You follow along, and then it hits a point and it starts to get weird. And it's really nice because it's not like a jarring change. It's this slow build up as spaces between words start to get a little bit longer, and there's like these little Morse code things that are scattered throughout. And it just slowly kind of creeps into the pages as you go along. And it's really cool. So
yes,
that's the best I can do to describe a book that's almost indescribable over audio.
I think you did a good job.
Thank you. You can borrow it when I'm done if you want.
I shall. Let's see. Well, Moby Dick is about the same length. Let's see which one of us finishes first.
Excellent.
Julian, what have you been up to reading this week?
Do Archie comics count?
Yes,
absolutely.
Comics count. We will have a whole episode about comics, graphic novels, manga. I've got that on the list of topics to discuss.
Fair enough. Well, then that. Actually, before I do get into it, side note, my son came home with his English book list the other day, and he has to read The Great Gatsby this year. And
then who better to ask about it than you?
That subject.
So my family was treated to The Rant, of course.
Did you just
so
put
he's
on
now
the
well prepared?
That where you ranted previously? It's like, here, listen to this, hit play, and then just storm out of the room.
He's now very prepared to read The Great Gatsby and hopefully argue with his teacher about how awful
hold on.
is.
Can we just do some role play for a second here? Let's say hypothetically, he finishes the book, comes out into the living room, you're enjoying a nice cup of tea with a bicky or something, watching your favorite show, and he goes, "Hey Dad, you know what? I actually really liked this book."
I knew that's where that was heading.
Get out of my house.
Oh, that's so sad.
One day I'll read The Great Gatsby.
You laughed.
Yeah, I know.
Don't waste your time.
Really don't.
Actually, no, Brayden, I think you'd quite enjoy it.
Yeah, my type of thing.
I just feel like I feel like you would you and F. Scott Fitzgerald would get along, I think.
I feel like he would enjoy it just to spite you, and then so you can have like a proper argument about it.
Possibly. I feel like that's what my son's going to do.
Oh yeah, no matter what I actually think of it, I will claim it's the greatest book ever written.
Of course you would.
Yes.
Oh, I can see the rage building already. That's just the thought.
We'll let that go for now.
When does he have to read it?
I'm not sure what term he reads. I think he's starting with. No, I can't remember. He's got a few to read. He's reading Lord of the Flies, which is a great book, I personally think. He has to read Romeo and Juliet, which I fucking hate. Yes, I know. I've been in it twice, and I hate it that much, possibly because of that.
You hate the ending. I know that. You just
hate just anyway. I won't
Let's talk
on
about something good. What do you enjoy?
Well, I'm currently reading two books. I'm flipping between depending on my mood. So I'm still reading the book Phantoms by Dean Koontz about the town that the inhabitants go missing or are found gruesomely dead. And it's slowly working towards this idea that it's this entity called the Ancient Evil, which is essentially whatever it needs to be in order to be the enemy at the time. So some people think of it as the devil. Some people think of it as something else, some kind of ancient entity that has been responsible for a lot of the mass disappearances over the centuries. The Mary Celeste is mentioned, the Roanoke colony that disappeared, things like that are all mentioned throughout. And it's really good, but it's quite heavy. Obviously, it's quite a tense novel. Very well written. One of the few books that's actually gotten me to look over my shoulder if I go out to get a drink or what have you in the middle of the night with all the lights off. That and The Shining, I think, are the two that have accomplished that. But I've also taken to reading the first Reacher novel, The Killing Floor by Lee Child, which is great. It's literally Brayton like watching the series. It really is. I think Adrian described it as airplane fiction.
Yeah.
And it's light and it's fun and it's very, very readable, but also really well written as well.
Is it one of those books that just knows what it is and doesn't try to be anything more than that?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't try to be deep or meaningful it has its moments. Like, I don't know if it's a spoiler to say Reacher's brother when he's found dead, because it's like the first episode if you haven't watched the show anyway.
It's kind of the inciting event of the whole first season.
And so that obviously when he remembers bits and pieces about his brother is quite touching, and things like that. But it's not Hemingway, it's not Oscar Wilde. Which reminds me, Eloise, watching Ted Lasso, I don't know if you've gotten this far, and it's not a spoiler either, but Ted reveals that he didn't realize Oscar Wilde was dead until he was told just then in that meeting, because his quotes always felt so modern.
I know.
That's so timeless.
No, I haven't gotten to that episode yet. The last episode I saw was the episode where they're in Amsterdam, which is, if you haven't seen Ted Lasso, it is absolutely
find a way
deserving of the hype that everyone talks about it. Like, I am not a sports person. I have no interest in sports. So when everyone kept saying about, you got to watch Ted Lasso, it's it's about football, I'm like, football. But like, no, but it's not about that. It's all about his relationships with these people and everything. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a go. And I watched the first episode. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's the best show ever.
It's one of the most uplifting series you'll ever watch.
It really is. It's so heartwarming. It's so funny. It's so poignant. And yes, but
it's also heartbreaking at times.
So heartbreaking. It's trigger warning. There are some very heavy-hitting subjects, especially in season 2 and 3.
There's nothing that rivals Jurassic Park. Let's not oversell it.
That's the standard of Jurassic Park is the standard of crying ugly tears.
Yes, Ted Lasso. The Amsterdam episode in season 3 was like the funniest piece of television I've seen in a long time. I laughed so hard.
It's a great episode.
Very, very good.
All right, I'll have to track it down.
Those are the two books I'm currently reading.
Okay. Nice. Funny
so,
that you didn't.
So, Julian, I do have to ask. You finished the second season, didn't you, of Reacher?
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
I did.
Tom Cruise or Alan Ritchson, who is the better match for Reacher?
I have not watched the Tom Cruise films,
But you know of Tom Cruise.
but yeah, based on what I've read, absolutely Alan Richardson. Just, I mean, the sheer fact that he is the right size.
I mean, even I know that, and I've not read or seen any any Reacher. So,
But look, please don't send Scientology after me. But no, Tom Cruise, my understanding, I love Tom Cruise. I love his acting. I love his movies. I think they're great. But my understanding is his Jack Reacher movies are great movies in and of themselves, but he does not embody Jack Reacher.
Because he's
But Alan
described as being
Richardson,
like a
just
human.
reading it.
Yeah, he's described as being like a human tank or something.
Yes. If
Like-
you've watched the series, that is essentially the perfect casting is Alan Richardson.
Lovely. Okay, Eloise, update us on the Moby Dick saga.
oh my God. Okay. We're gonna get into it. All right.
The rest of
I
this
don't-
episode is on you for Moby Dick.
All about Moby Dick. Where did I last talk? I can't remember what the last update was about. Did I update about?
He's on the ship.
Okay.
I believe was your last update.
Oh, he's on the ship. Yeah, that took a while for him to get on the ship. All right.
Apparently not much else has happened.
The ship is finally leaving port 200 pages later.
I am 2/3 of the way through the book now, which frankly is
Well done. Like
an amazing achievement, I have to say, that I have managed to get this far. And I know you keep saying, why am I still reading it then? It's like, well, I've gotten this far. I'm not giving up now. So to recap what I have gotten to so far since the last time we spoke, on page 166, which is usually an entire novel sometimes, is when you get the first mention of Moby Dick. That is actually my name.
166.
166. And I took a photo of it and I posted it on our Facebook page with a great big red mark next to it. If anyone's wondering, those are screen marks. I haven't marked the book, so please don't go screaming at me that I've written on a book, even though this deserves to be written all over with like great big text saying do not read. So yes, 166, they finally start talking about Moby Dick, and then they don't shut up about him. Like they say Moby Dick once per sentence for about 3 pages. So
went from not enough dick to too much dick.
Yes, sometimes there is just too much dick.
Beg to differ. That's another conversation.
That's a completely different podcast.
That's for our After Dark series.
That is. We'll do it, yes, for our patrons, if they so wish. So after that, they don't try to find him yet. No, the author then decides to describe all of the different types of whales in great detail.
How many whales are there?
There's lots, apparently, and I'm pretty sure not those actual things of what's named in this book. I'm pretty sure like biology has moved on since then, and a lot of that stuff doesn't exist in vernacular anymore. So keeps talking about like the right whales. The capital.
Yeah, they're still around. They're still
around.
That's a
That's a whale. Okay. Fucked it.
Are there wrong whales?
Not according to this one.
No, they're left.
They're left. So he talks about whales for quite a lot. Then on chapter 45, I also posted this on the Facebook page if you hadn't seen it, and I was very angry that this chapter starts like this. So far as what there may be of the narrative of this book, I'm like, oh, fuck you, my dude. Really? I would hazard a guess to say if there is not a narrative before chapter 45, then you need to not have included all of those chapters before it.
It's just giving you context.
Then he spends an entire
It's exposition. It's very necessary.
Yes, yeah. Then he spends an entire chapter talking about how white men are superior to all others and why white is pure. I'm like, oh no.
Oh, that hasn't aged well.
I know that this is a book written in the 1800s.
Yep.
Cannot judge books from 200 years ago by the standards of today, but oh, it's such a slog to get through that kind of grandiose, we're the best out of everyone description, especially when the crew is the majority of them are made up of people of color. So there's like a lot of Indigenous Americans on the boat. There's a few African Americans on the boat. And then I think, from what I gathered from what I was reading, an entire stowaway crew of Asian men that Captain Ahab has deliberately brought on board and kept secreted away for, I'm assuming, weeks to help him hunt Moby Dick, and then they come out at an opportune moment to like kill a whale, and then everyone's like, where'd all those guys come from? But they're described as yellow devils. I'm like, no, oh God, no. So yeah, that's where I'm up to at the moment. Oh,
I,
and then
hmm,
Julian, you look like you have something to say.
I don't know how Brayton feels, but at this point, given your absolute hatred of this book, um, I'm kind of equal parts torn between just feeling so bad for you that you've committed yourself to reading something you clearly hate, and equally very amused that you continue to punish yourself
Let's
by
just go
reading
that I'm here for your
this horrible
amusement.
thing.
It's like that old joke. My head hurts when I hit the wall. Well, don't do it then.
Do it then. I love how chapter 56, the title is Of the Less Erroneous Pictures of Whales and the True Pictures of Whaling Scenes. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a laugh a minute chapter. And then he proceeds to describe more interesting books that you can read about whaling.
So he's essentially just listing his references.
It really is. I have a feeling that the references he's placed in this book are real. I haven't gone to look it up because I don't really feel necessary to do that. Uh, so
Could be more interesting.
Yeah.
so far, like what I have read recently, they have killed two whales, and described in great detail about how they've killed the whales and why they've killed the whales and how they've cut them up to do the things with them, like take the oil and the blubber and the teeth, and they've talked about superstition about how you have to have like a leviathan sperm whale on one side of the boat and then a right whale on the other side of the boat, and then that means the boat is not going to capsize. And I went, ooh, foreshadowing. Ooh, there we go. I'm assuming something is going to capsize later now.
They put the right whale on the wrong side of the boat.
Oh, they did.
Oh, I'll let myself out.
They put it on the left side of the boat instead of the correct side. So I'm assuming that that's foreshadowing. Here's hoping. Otherwise, it's just more nonsense that means nothing and won't mean anything.
Chekhov would be rolling in his grave.
He would. Is Chekhov before or after Herman
After.
Melville?
After, I think.
He's after, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, much
Herman
after.
Herman Melville's decades before Chekhov.
Wasn't Chekhov in the 30s, or am I thinking of someone else?
Chekhov.
No, he was before that.
Late 1890s, early 1900s.
I might be thinking of Brecht.
Let's not talk about Brecht.
Well,
Too many flashbacks.
All the theatre nerds in the audience just shuddered.
Well, yes, that's my update on Moby Dick. I am pushing through. Like I said, I'm 2/3 of the way through. I'm going to get to the end of this book.
Is it to a point now? Sorry, is it to a point where you sit down to read this and just dread it?
Yes. I'm like, oh God, I've got to spend some time.
Oh, it's time to read. Damn it.
Oh no. Yep. That's pretty much how it's gotten. Like, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there shaking their heads at me, but no.
There are many people out there that will say Moby Dick is their favorite book of all time.
I would like to find those people and punch them in the nuts.
And now
Sorry.
suddenly you understand my Great Gatsby hate.
I know, I totally understand. I've never said I don't
At least
understand.
The Great Gatsby is a lot shorter.
Didn't feel shorter.
Which is worse, Moby Dick or The Great Gatsby? Discuss.
Let us know. Let us know in the comments which is worse.
All
Yep.
right. Well, Brayton, what are we talking about this week?
Well, I thought we would talk today about audiobooks.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay! Because I like to listen to lots of audiobooks because
You
I
are
have sometimes an
expert in-
hour plus commute to and from work every day. And I need something to keep me sane while I'm stuck in traffic. So why not get some reading done?
So that's my first query about audiobooks. When people say they read a book and it's an audiobook, is reading the right term?
I listened
I'm not,
to an
I don't want
audiobook.
to discuss whether or not. I don't know. I don't want to discuss whether or not audiobooks count as books. I think we'll talk about that obviously during this session. But I read a book, that's an audiobook. Did you read the book? Is that the right term? Do we go with that term with audiobooks?
I wouldn't say read because you're not reading, you're listening. I listened to the book. You still consumed it. You consumed a book in an audio format, but you didn't read it because there was no reading involved.
No, I would agree, but I do hear
Yep.
people say, I read a book, it was an audiobook. Well, did you read it? Is that the right term? Is that the term we want to go with?
Is it
For
just a
consuming
matter of
audiobooks?
semantics and it really doesn't matter?
Possibly.
I'm an
that is-
English teacher. Semantics always matter.
Yeah.
Well, I am in the habit of saying I will just automatically say I listen to an audiobook. That's what I will do. But if it depends on context, actually. If I say, oh, what did you listen to this week? Well, I listened to this book. But then if I'm talking like a year ago, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I read that book. I would be including an audiobook in that statement.
Okay.
That's my
So
opinion, though. It's not something I consciously
we
do.
talked-
It's just what I did.
So when we talked at the end of last year about the books we'd read in 2023, and you say, I read this book, this book, this book, you include audiobooks in that count.
Yep. In fact, both, I think if you remember, both books that I talked about, the best and worst, were both audiobooks.
And
Which-
because you do listen to quite a number of audiobooks, so how many do you think you've actually listened to over the last 12 months?
Oh, well, let me get my Audible statistics up.
Oh.
Because I've been listening for a few years now. So I just finished one yesterday, actually. A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab. I listened to her whole Darker Shade of Magic trilogy. It was very good, by the way. I have 93
The answer will shock you.
titles saved on my Audible account. However, I've not read all of those because Audible offers a free book every month that I just get whether I'm going to listen to it or not. But my total listening time for the last probably 3 or 4 years, 1 month, 2 days, 22 hours and 24 minutes worth of listening.
That's a lot of listening time.
So to and from work, I'll listen to an average of about 2 hours of audiobooks a day, give or take.
And how good are you at like retaining what you're actually listening to? Because I've not done an audiobook before, and it's because I feel like I would be distracted and perhaps not actually be taking in what I'm actually listening to, because that happens with podcasts a lot. So I listen to a lot of podcasts, especially when I'm like commuting to and from work, because I catch the train and the train's like 50 minutes long. But I do find that sometimes I won't be paying attention to what I'm listening to, and then I have to go back and rewind and re-listen. Do you find that you do that a lot with audiobooks, or do you feel that you are actually grasping the storyline when you're listening?
I absolutely get distracted. It's one of the things while driving because you have to actually pay attention to the road.
Mm. And how
Um,
frustrating is it then you'd have to like rewind, but you obviously can't do it when you're driving because you can't touch your phone. So how do you then go back over something you missed like 20 minutes ago in your journey, even though you're now 20 minutes into listening to a new part that you've suddenly gone, oh, I have to be paying attention again to what
yep.
I'm hearing.
All right. Very much depends. I have different strategies depending on the type of book I'm listening to.
Okay.
If it is a non-fiction book, generally I won't worry about it because there's not like a storyline that I have to keep up with. If it is a fiction book, if it's something I just missed that I know was 30 seconds or a minute ago, I'll just use the Bluetooth controls in my car, go back that little bit. If it was something hours ago, 20 minutes ago, once I have arrived at my destination, I will look up the plot summary online and just read through that chapter of what I missed.
Oh,
And
okay.
I had to do that a lot while I was listening through the Wheel of Time series because there's so many plot threads, so many characters that it would get to the end of a chapter and I'd go, okay, wait, what just happened? Have to go through. It's like, all right, I'm on this book, this chapter, and read through the chapter summary just to make sure I'm keeping up with what happens. But you miss stuff. I don't think anyone can listen to an audiobook, especially while you're driving. If you're something like doing the dishes or just going for a walk, I think it'd be a lot easier. But if you're driving where your brain is literally having to focus on one thing or the other thing or many multitasking, doing lots of different things at once, you will miss stuff. But generally, I haven't found it an issue keeping up with the overall storyline too much. I will miss the occasional little bit, and there are times where they'll do a callback to something that happened earlier on that I would have missed. Oh, wait, what was that? Then have to look up something. But it's not really a big issue for me.
Mm. And
I
I
think
like,
I think it also
oh, so
I think it also depends on the reader, not the reader, the narrator as well.
Mm.
I don't listen to a lot of audio books, but I have listened to a few, and I know, for example, when I was listening to It, which was narrated by Steven Weber, and the way he narrates the story is absolutely brilliant. It's immersive. He nails the voices of all the seven kids. They're all completely unique. And yeah, okay, I've read the novel before in print, so it was probably easy for me to follow along, but I found it much more interesting than when I say listen to The Picture of Dorian Gray, which is another great story, brilliantly written by Oscar Wilde. But I found I lost 20 minutes of time when I zoned out because the narrator wasn't as immersive, I suppose. So I think
Yeah,
it also has a lot to do with the person narrating the story.
absolutely.
Mm.
Did you know Oscar Wilde had died a long time ago?
Yeah,
No,
really
I
long
didn't.
time.
He feels so modern.
Yeah, absolutely. The narrator has a huge role to play in it. And I said in a previous show that I think I actually cut. We had a discussion like this in a previous episode that I edited completely out because it was way off topic, which
Mm.
kind of spurred this discussion. But the narrator plays a really big role. And when I'm looking for a book to read, well, read there, I said it. When I'm looking for a book to listen to, I'll often scroll through the reviews and see what they say about the narrator. And there's been one book that's been on my list for a while, but I'm hesitant to do it because the narrator has gotten mixed reviews. One person said that it sounds like Troy McClure narrating a book, and that threw them completely off. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can sit there for 16 hours listening to Troy McClure narrate a book. But
Mm.
yeah, Julian, like I said, some narrators nail it. Like a lot of, I don't know if you guys knew, but some audiobook narrators out there have little fan clubs where people
Yeah,
will
yeah, they
search out
do.
books that are narrated by a particular person.
Yeah.
And they're not like standard, like, well-known celebrities or anything like that. They're like their day job is to just narrate audiobooks.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's it.
they're very popular.
Yep, like Michael Kramer and Kate Redding are really, really popular ones. They they narrated the Wheel of Time series. They do a lot of fantasy books, especially. They're
I remember you
currently,
spoke about them, and I don't know if you'd edited out all of that discussion in that previous episode, but I remember you talked about how, yeah, they would do like a chapter each, depending on like the point of view, the POV character.
yeah.
Uh, yeah. And do they, I don't know them specifically, but do you have audiobooks where people will take on personas and voices for the characters that they're reading, or do they just read straight?
No,
Like just
most narrators will put on a voice.
Mm.
But depending on the narrator, it can be quite subtle, and sometimes that's all it needs. Other times it will be a quite pronounced change depending on, I guess, what the range of the narrator is and what the demands of the story are for, which can be quite challenging, I think, especially because and I'd love to get an audiobook narrator on and talk to them about it if anyone knows anyone out there. Because it's that fine line I find between what is an appropriate voice for a person, especially if you're going someone with a particular nationality.
Mm.
Where is that fine line between being respectful to the character while also not going over into parody of that accent or that nationality? Like, I think that would be a fine line to straddle, I guess, and where that line would be.
Have you listened to any books where you have that as an example?
Nothing comes to mind. No, I haven't listened to any books where I thought like, "Whoa, that's a bold choice." If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But I'm sure it's out there. I guess I just haven't listened to it.
Mm. I know that for the How to Train Your Dragon series, David Tennant does the audio novel voices, and I listened to him at like a Comic-Con panel type thing from last year, where they spoke to him about um how he chose the voices, because he puts on character voices for all of the different dragons, and how, because there's so many books in the series now, he would have to go back and listen to how he's done a particular voice before to remember how to do it. And talked about how he sort of backed himself into a corner with certain voices where he did a particular vocal technique for a dragon that literally only had 2 sentences in that one book and then was never heard of again, and then suddenly became a main character in like book 7 or something. And he talked about how, oh God, how am I supposed to do this voice for like 10 hours a day? Because it was very raspy on his vocal cords. So yeah, it would be interesting to know what other audio authors go through, or authors, no, audio voices go through,
Mm.
to figure out how to do that kind of vocalization. Have you listened to audiobooks where the narrator is just speaking as themselves the entire time and not putting any kind of inflection or difference when they talk as different characters?
Generally, the only ones I know of are non-fiction books,
Oh yeah,
because
that makes
then it's just someone talking through. But even then, it's still, even with a non-fiction book, it's a performance, because you're not just saying the words. You've got to say it in a way that will keep a listener engaged. So
sense.
even the ones that are doing non-fiction books, there's still those little peaks and valleys, and you've got to keep the audience excited about it, even if you're talking about a boring topic. Like, I listened to one that was all about trees and kind of the relationship between trees and the forest and the animals and stuff, and it was actually really, really interesting. And part of that is because the narrator kept it interesting, and that's their job. But I have listened to some other ones where the narrator has been a bit bland, and it's just not pulled me in as much as I would have wanted.
And it would be in their best interest, obviously, to make sure that they are being interesting so that people will purchase that work, I suppose. Like, it's not just that they're churning out something for the sake of having people have the ability to listen to it. It's still a performance, and it's still selling the story as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think if you want recommendations for good audiobooks to start with, if you're not sure for anyone out there, Project Hail Mary by who wrote it? Andy Weir, who also wrote The Martian,
Oh,
is probably the best audiobook I've ever listened to because it is absolutely amazing. And I'm just finding out who narrated. Ray Porter is the narrator, and he's a pretty big name in audiobooks, I believe. He's written a lot. But yeah, Project Hail Mary is probably one of the best audiobooks I've ever listened to. The other ones are The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells, who Kevin R. Free narrates those, who Eloise you would know from Night Vale. He plays Kevin in Night Vale.
He has a delightful voice.
He is great, and he plays a murderbot.
Yes, he does.
He does. And there was one more that has slipped my mind now. I'll remember it later.
I was going to mention before as well when we were talking about sort of drifting off and not paying attention to what you're listening to. I suppose the same thing can happen really when you're reading a book as well. Frankly, I know all about that when it comes to a certain book that I might have been mentioning before, where, yes, you do read a paragraph and then you go, hang on a second, I need to go back over and reread that again. So I suppose it's probably fair to say that it just depends on your attention span, really, and also how neurotypical you are. I know we're not officially diagnosed, but both Brayden, you and I both believe we have ADHD and we've just never been diagnosed. Julian,
Absolutely.
how do you feel about that? Do you feel like you have
about
ADHD?
you having ADHD?
No, I meant about yourself.
No, I don't think that it's any kind of undiagnosed ADHD with me. I just reading or listening to a book when I'm driving is probably not the best time for me because I don't have a lot of alone time, and when I do have alone time, I like to think about things. So a lot of the time I'm driving, I'm either keeping one eye on the road and kind of thinking about things. And that's why I tend to zone out. When I'm at home and I'm doing something else, bringing the washing in or doing the dishes or whatever it might be is the perfect time for me to be listening to an audiobook. And just to go on with recommendations, Brayden, for any Stephen King fan out there, Stephen Weber's version of It is phenomenal. The way he just commands that book is a thing of brilliance. I've tried to listen to a couple of other Stephen King audiobooks, and nothing quite lives up to what he does with that. And Richard Armitage with Jekyll and Hyde as well.
Awesome. I remember
something about his voice.
Yeah, I remember my third recommendation. And Eloise, you'd be into this one. Audible actually did an adaptation of the Sandman comics.
Ooh, who's the voice?
It's a full cast recording.
Ooh,
okay.
Nice.
Listen to this cast. You have James McAvery as Morpheus.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Riz Ahmed.
Yep.
Kat Dennings. Taron Egerton.
Ooh.
Samantha Morton.
Yep.
BB Newirth. Hope I'm saying that correctly. Here's the big ones. Well, James McAvery's there. Andy Serkis.
Oh.
Michael Sheen.
Oh yes, he plays. Does he do Death or Lucifer?
Someone. And
Lucifer.
Narrated by Neil Gaiman himself.
Oh, okay. I'm joining Audible now.
They have 3 acts, 1, 2, and 3.
Nice.
I've listened to the first one, and it's really good.
Because we have 6 volumes of Sandman that I've been progressively getting for my husband Alex over the last couple of years. So yes, I have been meaning to read them myself when I finish Moby Dick.
You're never finishing Moby Dick.
No, I'm never. I will. I swear it. I swear it.
It will always be with you.
Yep. He'll never leave me. James McAvoy is in the radio version of Neil Gaiman's Neverwhere. So was probably included in that because of his previous work, and he's excellent. Neverwhere is one of my favorite books, and we will get to that at some point when we
Yes.
do that topic.
We'll have to do a Neil Gaiman episode.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
Fantastic book. I was thinking, and this is probably slightly off topic because I don't have any audiobook recommendations because, like I said, I don't listen to them, but I do listen to podcasts and I do listen to a lot of fictional podcasts. So for example, I listen to I can't say the word now, anthology podcast of Old Gods of Appalachia, which is this very fantastic creepy horror story that's set over many decades, sort of in the central northwest or wherever. And like I find that I don't know if I can count that would you count that as a book? Because it's still written, it's still a story, but it's a different medium because it's being performed by a person.
I would classify, I guess, an audio book for me is a recording of a published in print book.
Okay, fair enough.
Whereas that would be more, I class it almost like a radio drama.
Yeah, and like I do listen to a lot of that kind of stuff. So, we've listened to Welcome to Night Vale. I've listened to Midnight Burger, which is a fantastic show.
I haven't heard of that one.
I'm sure I've recommended that.
I'm sure you have. You recommend a lot of podcasts to me.
Yes. Listen to that one. It is very, very good.
And I keep telling you to listen to Hello from the Magic Tavern.
Yeah, but there's like 500 episodes of that.
And they're all gold.
Okay.
Well, actually, no. They're not all gold, but most of them are good.
I mean, that's like just an improvisational weird show set in like a D&D land or something, isn't it?
Pretty much. Okay. And it's hilarious.
I've described it accurately. Yeah, so like I've always thought, do those types of podcasts count as a book? But probably not, because you would fall into the realm of radio drama there, I suppose. So it's just a different form of entertainment. Brayton, you mentioned when we were talking about this online before we started recording about you wanted to talk about AI and how like people could be using it to then create audiobooks. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, because I was looking through a TikTok post of actually an audiobook narrator I follow on TikTok. And she said that Amazon is now allowing AI narrated audiobooks to be put up for sale on their platform, which I do have concerns about because AI, as we know, is not a perfect system yet.
No.
But the bigger concern is that it's going to put a lot of narrators out of work, because why pay hundreds or thousands of dollars to get this person to narrate your book when you can get it done in an hour through a computer and have it up and ready to go? But I think it's the same thing like when you put in like a computer generated character into a movie, like we saw with the example that pops to mind is like Grand Moff Tarkin in Rogue One, where the CG was pretty good, but you could tell there was something off about it.
There is still very much the uncanny valley aspect to AI, where you can tell where it's not real. And Julian mentioned as well that you don't get the same nuance with an actual person.
Exactly.
And like, I think we have to take Amazon specifically as well with a grain of salt, because they have for many years done a lot of shitty stuff in terms of, fine line copyright breaching to save a few dollars. Like, for example, apparently, Amazon has also now started going onto Archive of Our Own, which is also known as AO3, which is the fan fiction website where you can get loads of like literally millions of fan fiction that people have written. And they've actually been taking like some of the long form fan fiction stuff where like people have written basically a novel sized fan fiction and have reprinted them on Amazon to purchase through Amazon without like the author's knowledge. And I find that really like I don't know how they can get away with it because one, the fan fiction author could not sue because technically their work is of someone else's work. But at the same time, the original author of that work should probably be able to sue, I would have thought, because their Amazon is selling, an unauthorized version of their copyrighted material. Like I find that it's going to be in this really weird realm of law that we don't technically have up-to-date laws to try and deal with there. It's a shitty thing to do. First of all, Amazon, stop doing that. Don't take people's hard-written work and try and sell it on your site for a couple of dollars. That's just ridiculous. But at the same time, it's like people blame AI for people, losing jobs and losing work. And it's, oh, no, people, we're not going to be hiring these people anymore because of AI. It's just like, well, that's a multi-billion-dollar company making that decision. That's not AI's fault. That AI is a tool that a person, a real person, like, people of a company board have decided we're going to use this instead of actually paying people money to do so. And it's worse off quality. Like, you're not going to get, because people are concerned, oh, ChatGPT are going to be able to write novels. It's just like, I've used ChatGPT and I've had a few friends who have put some funny stuff through ChatGPT, and it's not great. It is a prompt.
Yes.
Frankly, it can give you a prompt and it can give you some great ideas. It's really good at giving you words that you might not have thought of, for example. It's like, oh, okay, I'm trying to think of this specific sentence, and it writes the sentence and there's like this one word in it that you're like, oh, I love that word. I'm going to use that word and then completely rewrite the sentence myself. So I feel like that's what it's used for, but it's not going to be able to write an actual novel or script or song or record audio of a book and have it be good, because
that's
people
the thing.
People will, if you want to save on money and go, okay, I'm going to buy this $5 book, well, then that's what you're going to get. You're going to get like a shitty $5 book that's not interesting. And like I feel like people will turn away from that very quickly when they realize the quality of this is terrible, when I could actually be spending a decent amount of money to pay a real person who is an artist and get something quality in return.
And that goes back to what I was saying before about how audiobook narrating is essentially a performance. You're acting in it. You're not just reading the words, you are acting, you're putting on a show. And AI is not to that point yet where they can get that kind of that subtext and that nuance that is required in reading or narrating an audiobook. But like I said, I think AI does absolutely have its place now, and it is here to stay. But I could see it like potentially an indie author or something putting up maybe a free audiobook chapter narrated by AI on their website just to kind of get interest in the book. I could definitely see that. But if we're talking about a full book, I think a human narrator would be the better way to go, in my opinion.
Julian, your thoughts? You're looking very pensive.
I think that this idea of AI and how it's going to take over is a little bit of a panic stations. We've seen this sort of mass hysteria over these sorts of things before. But like I said, like we've talked about nuance a lot. And what people have to remember is that AI is machine based. It is computer. It is zeros and ones. It is pure logic. And I think people forget that a lot of the time. AI is pure logic. So we've all seen those AI photos where they don't get things right because to them, to the machine or whatever, to its computing, that's the logical output. Humans aren't logical. We're not. We feel things, we have emotions, and those emotions can't be categorized. And so machines can't pick up on that nuance. And so they can't express that nuance. It's the same thing as when you get cookies that have been made by, machine baking as opposed to cookies that have been made by your grandmother or, your neighbor or whoever it might be, or food cooked by a chef as opposed to food cooked by this great vat of whatever it is it's making it. It's that feeling, that nuance.
We could almost say there's no love in it.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way of putting it. There's no love in it. Machines are logical. They don't pick up on the illogistics of the human emotions. And so I don't think that AI can be a time saver. And like you said, Brayton, it could be one of those things where it's used to help an author, but I don't think it will ever replace human readers, human actors, whatever it might be. So it's a bit of a storm in a teacup.
The Terminator has a lot to answer for.
I mean, it does. And I think the recent the actors' strikes, I should say, based around using their likenesses through AI and things like that. And the outcome that the actors got out of that, I think, proves that the world's not going to take that. Not at the moment. Not until they force us to take it.
It's certainly fair enough to protest doing one day's work, getting a full body scan, and then a company going, we own your image now, and we're going to put your image in everything for perpetuity, and you're never going to get paid again. And then that is terrible. We definitely needed laws around that. The idea of then, for example, Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars, like if you wanted to tell that story that requires that actor, do you put in the AI generated version of Peter Cushing, or do you find someone who looks like him?
Well,
and
I still think
someone else instead.
When we look at those sorts of things, anyone who's seen the newest Indiana Jones movie, or I think it was also in The Mandalorian where Luke Skywalker appeared, was it?
Yes. Yeah.
They're not using full AI even at that point. They're still using actors and just putting an artificial face on top, or de-aging. I think
they de-aged.
Technically, they de-aged.
And I saw Indiana Jones, the last one. I forget what it was called now, actually, because
Dial of Destiny.
Oh, that's the one, Dial of Destiny. I have to say, the de-aging was amazing until he started talking, and that's the thing. It's the mouth movements that are not good yet, where you can tell that is not a real human mouth. That is generated.
Funnily enough, and this is just a side note, the biggest complaint was that they said Harrison Ford still sounded like a grumpy old man.
He's always
sounded that way. When he was 30, he sounded
like
a grumpy old man. No, but you're right. And even to that degree, it's not an AI doing the part. It's still a human actor based on human movement. I mean, Andy Serkis created Gollum through human movements, human facial expressions, and the AI just captured that and mimicked it. It wasn't an AI-produced piece of work. So I think we're a little bit worried about nothing at the moment.
So amazing. Like the way he embodies those types of characters, and because he's played animals. He was in Planet of the Apes as what was the ape called? I can't even remember. Caesar, that's right. Caesar. He played Caesar. He was Gollum. What else has he done? He's done a whole bunch of other stuff.
He was King
Kong.
That's right.
He was Snoke.
It's not fair that there isn't an Oscar category for the thing he does, but then again, who else does it apart from Andy Serkis? Just give him an Oscar.
He's kind of the guy you call if you need motion capture.
Yes.
He does an amazing narration of the Screw Tape Letters, although I don't know if it borders on radio theatre or if it's a narration. Could be a little of both, but he does do a brilliant performance. of the Screw
He
Tape
apparently
letters.
also does the audio narration for the Silmarillion. So if you've got to spend 19 hours, listen to him tell
He's
you
d-
the
he's
history of
yeah, he's
Middle
done the
Earth.
whole Lord of the Rings. He did the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Silmarillion. They're on my list to get through at some point.
Yes.
Well,
So
anyway,
I'd like,
I think we've solved the AI crisis.
excellent. Good.
I think everyone's
I think
good
so.
now. Yep.
Everyone's fine. Everyone's all happy.
Don't panic yet. The
It's not
machines will tell us when
contaminated.
it's time to panic. It's fine.
Excellent.
Don't forget, Mars is completely populated by robots that have been abandoned. They will rise up and get us first before the AI does.
Completely populated by robots as far as we know.
As far as we know. Well, apart from all of those conspiracy videos that keep zooming in on like, look at this thing. I'm like, that's pareidolia, dude.
It's a rock that looks like a fish.
It's a rock that's shaped like a mouse.
Oh, that's just what they'd have you believe.
All right. I think that might be a good time to wrap it up.
Excellent. All right. So if you want to follow us online, do so on Facebook at We're Not Helpful Podcast. Obviously, like and subscribe. I'm still trying to work out how to get an Instagram going. If you'd like to follow us individually on Instagram, you can follow us. I'm just Eloise Dundas Taylor. Julian, you're just Julian Fanning, and Brayton, you're just Brayton Linham.
Lineham.
Lineham.
Yeah, I don't know. I literally don't post anything on Instagram. Maybe I should start.
Yeah.
I definitely look at stuff on there. I don't do anything on there though.
And once we get an Instagram, I will be looking at ways that we can get some of this beautiful, beautiful facial video stuff that our listeners can't see onto Instagram as well.
Yes. I have
perhaps the rant on Great Gatsby or a Moby Dick rant. So you can see Eloise's beautiful features as she rants and tirades about Moby Dick.
Yes, as my eyebrows go up and down.
Yep. Yes, we do have a YouTube channel where I normally just upload the audio, but for our interview with Madeline and the last episode, I actually uploaded the Zoom recording, so you can see us all there if you haven't checked that out.
I will be looking also at ways of getting mine and Brayton's reactions to Eloise's fan fiction as we stand there fanning ourselves.
Yeah.
Just goes a little bit hot.
Yeah. I would also like to shout out Kate Mack on Instagram. I mentioned her book Flamegate a few weeks ago, and she was very kind enough to give us a shout out on her Instagram.
Thanks, Kate.
I think you guys saw that. But
I did see that. Actually, I've started following it.
Yeah, I do. I follow her on Instagram. I follow a lot of people on Instagram. I just don't post anything on there. But I just wanted to give her a quick plug. That her books in the Flamegate duology are going to be completely free from the 1st to the 5th of February.
I did see that. Yes.
Yeah, just the ebooks. But Kate, if you want someone to narrate an audiobook, I'm available.
As am I. I've got a very lovely voice, I've been told.
So do I.
Yeah, we're going to have a sexy voice off now, are we?
Absolutely. Yep, so her books are going to be completely free from the 1st to the 5th of February. So please, it's literally going to cost you nothing to go and buy her books and give them a read. Support independent authors. We're all big on that. So yeah, jump on and get them before they're gone.
Excellent. And you can also email us at Brayton. What's the email address again?
I've told you every single episode.
No,
It is nothelpfulpod@gmail.com, and it will be in the show notes. Everything will be in the show notes.
Yes. And as I said, we'll get pictures of Brayton's House of Leaves pages up on the Facebook page, just so you can see how insane that book is.
It's very insane.
All right, well, we'll wrap it up there for tonight. So thanks everyone again for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Bye,
Cheerio,
everyone.
Bye-bye.